Hello, I'm Pam Hall, and this is Community Action. Today, I will be talking about some important topics with a common theme. It is very important that Americans realize what is going on so that we may come together as a country. We have many things in common, just being from the USA. We can agree, for instance, that one of the best ways to show care for your neighbors is to alert them to hazards. Can't deny the obvious. Climate change is real. Extreme weather is becoming far too common. In 2015, investigative journalists found internal Exxon memos that showed the company had known about the potential for global warming from its fossil fuels since the late 1970s. Exxon's own research confirmed the role of fossil fuels in global warming, but the company continued to promote doubt about climate science in public communications. Exxon delayed action to make more money, and earlier investments in wind and solar could have prevented some of the current and future climate disasters. Carbon dioxide, CO2, emissions come from both natural sources and human activities. Natural sources are humans and animals which exhale carbon dioxide as a waste product, and volcanic eruptions which also emit CO2. Human activities, the main source of human-caused CO2 emissions, is the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas for energy production. Other human activities that contribute to CO emissions include deforestation, land clearance for development or agriculture, soil degradation, wildfires. CO2 is a greenhouse gas that traps heat from the sun, contributing to climate change. In the United States, the largest sources of CO2 emissions are transportation and electricity generation. I attended Michigan Climate Summit 2024 as part of Pat Race's Climate Stick group. I interviewed Pat on my MCTV program, Earth News. Koch brothers, Bezos, Musk, Zuckerberg are part of the 1% that control the U.S. and other parts of the world. It is disturbing. Musk openly endorses Trump, donating millions to his campaign, getting the biggest tax breaks like the other 1%, while the rest of us pay for it. Look up Citizens United for more information on this. Trump is as bad as Putin, Kim Jong-un, Netanyahu, and has already turned Americans against each other who disagree with him, seating himself as king and, like Hitler, the world. That puts the U.S. number one on the shit list of the rest of the world, who also have nukes. Project 2025 clearly shows that you are about to lose your rights, and the democracy of our nation and its Constitution is at stake. What is Project 2025? It is a wish list of right-wing policies reflecting an extreme white Christian nationalist ideology written by the Heritage Foundation and more than 100 other conservative groups as a blueprint for potential conservative administration. It is an explicit effort to further empower the presidency, embedded ideologues in nonpartisan civil service, and enable the executive branch to unravel the civil rights movement's gains over the last 7 decades. The full agenda, which is more than 900 pages long, would completely reshape our government, federal government, in order to benefit white nationalists, the rich and powerful, and religiously motivated bigots. Here are just a few of its worst ideas. Gutting enforcement of civil rights laws. Project 2025 proposes that the Department of Justice, DOJ, should enforce civil rights laws only in the courts, eliminating important administrative tools to address discrimination, for example, resolution agreements and consent decrees. It would also eliminate the use of disparate impact in civil rights enforcement, making a lot of discrimination invisible through redefinition. Weaponizing civil rights laws. Project 2025 calls diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, which is DEIA, managerialist, left-wing race and gender ideology that must be erased. And it would ban funding for critical race theory, twisting civil rights laws to use the DOJ and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, as enforcement arms. It would use the executive branch to undermine protections for LGBTQ employees. It would stop civil rights data collection, including data that the EEOC uses because it includes racial classifications, and it would shut down federal DEIA offices. It would even prosecute private employers that support DEIA in their workplaces. It would shrink the EEOC and deploy limited resources to protect white men from employment discrimination. It would have agencies support pro-life workplaces and religious exemptions to permit civil rights violations. Weaponizing the Department of Justice. Project 2025 would reassign prosecution of election-related offenses from the Civil Rights Division to the Criminal Division. It also calls for prosecuting the Pennsylvania Secretary of State for providing provisional ballots in the 2020 election. Damaging data collection and dissemination. Project 2025 would politicize the Census Bureau and make it impossible to fully understand our society, enforce civil rights, promote equity, or engage in evidence-based policy making. It would replace experts with political appointees, exclude non-citizens from the census, ignore public input, and reduce efforts to ensure full and accurate counts, enabling mass deportation. Former Trump has called for the largest deportation program in American history. Project 2025 would help make it possible. It would drastically increase detention resources and make it easier for agents to arrest immigrants anywhere in the country. Attacking reproductive rights. Project 2025 would ban My Life Pristone, the drug used in more than half of all the abortions today, and it would prosecute people who send medication abortion drugs in the mail. Expanding harmful digital surveillance. Project 2025 would expand digital surveillance to enforce harmful policies, including against women seeking to exercise their reproductive rights, allowing the proliferation of online misinformation and disinformation. Project 2025 would end ongoing federal efforts to combat online disinformation and threats to secure. Politicizing the government at every level. Project 2025 supports drastic changes known as Schedule F reforms that would force tens of thousands of civil servants, including in agencies that protect civil rights, to serve the president's political aims instead of serving the public interest. To learn more about what's at stake at Project 2025, I will have a link at the end of this broadcast. And so please join the fight for justice, inclusion, and fairness for all. And I am, at this point, just going to read a letter that I recently wrote to Midland Daily News that was published October 7th, 2024. Before I read that letter, I encourage those listening or watching to look up Citizens United, because that is what's behind a lot of the money that is making it impossible for citizens to their voices to be heard. It is a misnomer to call it Citizens United when it's all about corporations having control, the 1%. So here's my letter. I say, first, let's define democracy. Democracy is a system of government in which citizens elect representatives that align with their core values. Definition of govern. lead, oversee, protect. People who live and work in the United States have a hard time believing in democracy if they don't see themselves represented by it. Voting in America started in 1789, controlled by the states, mostly for white men. The 15th Amendment was ratified for black men to vote in 1870, but much harder to vote based on slavery. White women couldn't vote until 1920. Black women until 1965, when the Voting Rights Act passed. Bigotry and misogyny have existed since the foundation of the United States, starting with the genocide of the Native Americans who lived here. Today in America, the wealthy hold the majority of the power, while being only 1% of our population. This is not democracy. It is an oligarchy. More government representation is needed by the remaining 99%, tired of the imbalance of power, needing their voices heard, tired of paying all expenses of the wealthy while struggling to make ends meet. There needs to be a corresponding percent of elected officials that represent the population. Women who comprise the majority still do not have equal representation. The Equal Rights Amendment has not yet been ratified. With the reversal of Roe versus Wade, women's rights to their own bodies has been taken away in some states and is under threat in others. The U.S. Constitution clearly saw a need to separate religion from government due to the personal nature of beliefs, while the right to worship remains. So to finish, democracy is under attack. If you believe in democracy, vote. Thank you. Pam Hall from Community Action on MCTV.